Alrighty, in today's video, I'm gonna go over a couple of tips that I use to make my DJI Air 3 footage look way more cinematic. And I realize that's a very played out word, cinematic, but I feel like it's pretty relevant to filming with the Air 3 now that we have that 3x lens. So hopefully some of these tips will help you improve your videos. Let's get started. Alrighty, what's good everybody? Welcome back, Ken here. I'm out here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I came out here for the commercial UAV Expo. I'm obviously not at the Expo. I was there yesterday and I was there for a short period of time today. I started walking around the floor and I was like, why am I here? There's nothing here that I want to see. There's nothing here for people that do content creation. So I decided to come out here in the desert and give you a couple of tips on making your footage much more cinematic. So let's get into it with tip number one. Alrighty, so tip number one, this shouldn't be a shocker. It's to lean on that 3x lens that the Air 3 offers. So now that we have that 3x lens, you need to be able to leverage it and use it. I want you to take, for instance, the reason why I'm starting the video right here is I want you to take a look at this road and see the contour. If we took the shot super wide, the shot just doesn't have the same effect or dynamic. You can see where the road has a little bit of elevation. If you just shoot this with the wide angle, you're not gonna get those mountains in the foreground. So if we use the 3x lens, this shot is going to look way more dynamic and way more interesting. So one of the things I like to do with this 3x lens is do a little bit of detail shots, which before having two lenses on a drone was impossible. You couldn't really shield the location in which you were flying. So what I like to do with real estate videos specifically is I like to do a lot of teaser shots. And with that 3x lens, I can get detail shots with the drone, which again, never had that option before, but now we have that option. You can sort of build the suspense for your video. You can build interest by just showing, teasing, not giving away the location, and then use that wide angle shot as that big punch to sort of show the whole canvas and landscape of the area you're flying. So tip number one, utilize the living shit out of that 3x lens. So here's something I've been doing every time I've come out to Vegas, like the past, I wanna say like 6 or 7 trips. I have been renting a car, and I've actually been renting a Tesla because for me, this is cheaper than freaking getting an Uber. I would have probably already spent almost $200 in Ubers in just like the past 48 hours. So honestly, renting from Hertz, big thank you to Brad Hendo for the hookup on this, because this is way more economical, and it's nice to be able to go explore. Can't do that if I don't have a car. So yeah, I won't buy a Tesla, but I'll rent one. Alrighty, so tip number two is to film in 48 frames per second. Now this may seem a little bit taboo to some, but 48 frames per second I have been using for the past 2 years now, and honestly, I really like the way that it makes my footage look. So for starters, it is not quite as slow as 60 frames when you interpret it, whether you use Premiere Pro or you use Final Cut Pro. It's going to allow you to maintain sort of a little bit of a speed, especially like behind me, you see the traffic, we've been filming it, we've been using automatic speed. And when these cars are blazing by at 60 miles an hour, it just gives them a dreamy look. I use 48 frames per second for all of my drone shots. It allows me to go quick, but it also gives me a little bit of an ability to slow that footage down if I need to. Now again, I do interpretation of my footage. I do not just use percentages, but with typical 60 frames, dropping it into a timeline of 24, you can slow it down by 40%. If you're dropping it down into a 30 frames per second timeline, you can get about 50% slowness without really degrading the image quality. You're gonna get about a 60% speed with 48 frames per second, which I think is plenty fine. It still allows everything to move fast, and it doesn't like really let somebody know that you were slowing the footage down. The whole idea is you wanna make it seem like you're a really good pilot. So try 48 frames per second. Another thing I've noticed is I don't get as much stutter in my footage by using 48 frames per second when it removes those frames from the clips. All right, let's get into tip number 3. So funny story, we were actually out here yesterday, same spot flying, but there was a lot of people and we didn't really do a lot of adventuring. So today, because I'm by myself, I figure we're gonna go up over through here and we're gonna talk about tip number 3, which is filming in log profiles. Or what? I haven't seen any rattlesnake. Alrighty, so shooting log, that's your tip number 3. and this should be pretty much common sense, but log footage is going to typically give you the best amount of dynamic range. A lot of times you're going to be in some pretty contrasty environments, or I would say dynamic range challenged environments. Like for instance, I do real estate. Sometimes the house in the front, I can't get good exposure because the sun is behind, and that was just the time the agent picked for us to do the video. So, you know, you want to try to choose a profile that's going to allow you to win. And a lot of times the log footage will let you get the best possible look out of your footage. Like right now, I am filming in the log profile. And if I was standing here, well, I mean, this is actually pretty good because the tree is actually making a sort of a softbox, but you get the idea. My skin tones aren't super hot. I'm able to control the highlights a little bit better. And that's really what you're looking for, is more control of your shadows, more control of your highlights. Now, what I have found with D-Log-M is it leans more towards overexposure on the highlight side. So if you're going to protect anything, you have to protect your highlights. You should not be overexposing too terribly much. I would say no more than 0.03 at the max in most situations with D-Log-M. I gotta tell you, I'm absolutely stoked that I left the convention because it's really, really nice out here. Again, it's probably like 80, 85 degrees, no humidity, pretty nice. All right, piggybacking on log footage, another nice thing about filming log is it allows you to control the output of the color. For me, I love to control the color on all of my videos. I use Phantom LUTs, and if you are filming in the standard profile, you are sort of at the mercy of whatever color science that the camera provides you on that standard profile. So at least filming in log, the colors are not baked in, and because they're not baked in colors, you can basically mold them to wherever you need them to be. I always hear people say, I want the fastest amount of turnaround time, and using log will just increase my workflow. And I don't think that that's entirely true. Actually, it takes me less time with log footage if I expose correctly. If I simply drop the technical LUT that I'm looking for, add a little bit more contrast, maybe tweak the style a little bit, and some of these things you can just make presets for, it actually takes me less time and I get a better image than sitting there, getting back to my computer and realizing I have color or dynamic range that is less than desirable. So sometimes shooting log is a great thing. Now, I get it. There are some times where you may want to shoot the standard profile, and I would encourage anybody who's a beginner to at least dabble with log footage because you will get better results and your videos will look way more professional. I'll leave a link for the LUTs that I'm using. They're not actually designed for the Air 3. They are designed for the Sony camera, but what I do is I dial the mix and the intensity back to like 30%. Just add a little bit more saturation, slight a bit contrast, and it's beautiful. All right, so the last tip I have for you when it comes to getting better footage is pre-planning. You have to pre-plan your movements. So many times I witness and watch people's videos where they're just sort of flying haphazardly with no agenda. They're not flying with any purpose. I've said this numerous times in my videos. Get some canvas shots, like look over the landscape of what you're flying, and then start putting together a story in your head. Once you have that story in your head, fly with a purpose. Make every single shot that you are taking count. You don't want to fly and just sort of fly all willy-nilly and get a bunch of shots, because then when you go back to your editing software, you have all these extra clips that you may not ever use because the footage just isn't good or it's just super jerky. So if you're going to fly, fly with purpose, fly with intent, and get just what you need to make the perfect edit in your mind. And then, you know, I'm usually on and off the record button. I don't sit there and just keep recording, because when you're trying to cull over your footage and basically look through all this imagery at the end of the day or whenever you're going to edit your video, having to sift through like 5 minutes of flight footage to find that perfect shot is such a pain in the ass. I promise you, there's probably nothing that you're going to miss by going on and off on the record button. I mean, that's just my philosophy with it, and that's my technique. But again, to each their own, but make sure you are flying with purpose. Alrighty, so that's gonna do it for this video. Hopefully some of these tips will help you get better footage out of your Air 3. And to be honest, that last tip could probably be applied to anything. Again, planning is always a good key for success when it comes to flying. It's gonna let you maximize those batteries and hopefully save you a lot of time editing. I'm gonna go ahead and keep on exploring. There's a lot of places I haven't been out here, even though I've been out here so many times. I feel like each time I've come out here, I really haven't had a chance to really maximize everything Vegas had to offer. And because this is such a short trip, I really want to try to get the most in that I possibly can, because I don't know if I'm going to come back out here for CES since it's in January, and well, Super Bowl is also happening and it's going to be crazy expensive. All right, that's going to do it for this video. I'd really appreciate if you drop a comment. Let me know if you've tried any of these tricks yourself, and also hit that subscribe button if you've made it all the way through this video, because I want to try to get this channel to 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year. It's a lofty goal, but it's a goal I think we can do. All right, I'll see you next time. Stay original.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn it with ghosts.